The Valoran cruiser moved through the darkness of space like a giant metal fish swimming through an endless black ocean. Its name was the Ascendant Dawn, and it was one of the most powerful ships in the Valoran fleet. Commander Thyrix stood on the bridge, his purple scales catching the soft light from the control panels around him. He had done this many times before. Finding new species was his job, and he was very good at it. "Report," Thyrix said in a bored voice. His science officer, a younger Valoran named Morith, looked up from his scanning station. "We have confirmed the presence of intelligent life on the third planet from this star, Commander. They call it Earth." Thyrix walked closer to the main viewing screen. The planet was beautiful in a simple way. Blue water covered most of its surface, with patches of green and brown land scattered around. White clouds swirled across it like paint strokes on a canvas. He had seen many planets like this one. They were always the same. Primitive species, basic technology, easy to control. "What level of development?" Thyrix asked. Morith checked his readings again. "They have basic space travel. Small stations orbiting their planet. Some probes in their solar system. Nothing impressive. I estimate they achieved space capability only about 150 of their years ago." "Primitive," Thyrix said with a small laugh. "Perfect for integration. The Valoran Protectorate had been doing this for thousands of years. They would find new species, offer them protection and membership in the Protectorate, and absorb them into the Empire. Some species said yes right away. Others needed a little convincing. But in the end, everyone joined. The Protectorate was too powerful to refuse. Prepare the standard welcome message, Thyrix ordered. Inform them of their selection for membership. Make sure they understand the benefits of cooperation. And if they refuse? Morith asked, though he already knew the answer. They never refuse, Thyrix said. Not after they see our ships. The message was sent. Radio waves traveled across the empty space between the Valoran cruiser and the little blue planet. Thyrix sat down in his command chair and waited. He expected panic. He expected confused transmissions. He expected fear. That was always how it went. Far away, on an orbital station called Horizon Gate, a young woman named Park Yuna sat at her communication console. She was 28 years old, with short black hair and tired eyes. Her shift was almost over, and she was thinking about the hot meal waiting for her in the station cafeteria. The night had been quiet. Too quiet, really. Space was always quiet, but something about tonight felt different. Her console beeped. Yuna looked at the screen and frowned. The signal was strange. It was not coming from Earth, and it was not coming from any of the other human stations or ships. It was coming from outside the solar system. What in the world? She whispered to herself. She ran the signal through the translation program. The computer worked for several seconds, trying to match the patterns to something it understood. Then words appeared on her screen. Strange words. Impossible words. The message talked about something called the Valoran Protectorate. It talked about membership and protection. It talked about surrender. Yuna's hands began to shake. She read the message 3 more times to make sure she was not imagining things. Then she reached for the emergency communication button. Security. This is Communications Officer Park Yuna at Station Horizon Gate. I need to speak with Admiral Kim immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. The waiting felt like forever. Yuna kept staring at the alien message on her screen. Aliens. Real aliens. They existed. All those years of wondering. All those questions about whether humans were alone in the universe. Now, they had an answer. But the answer came with a demand for surrender. The door to the communications center slid open, and Admiral Kim Do-won walked in. He was 62 years old, with gray hair cut short in military style and a face that showed no emotion. He had served in the Earth Defense Force for 40 years. He had seen wars and peace, victories and losses. But nothing in his training had prepared him for this moment. "Show me," he said simply. Yuna pointed at her screen. Admiral Kim read the message slowly. His expression did not change, but Yuna noticed his hands tighten into fists at his sides. "Have you told anyone else about this?" the Admiral asked. "No, sir. Just security when I called for you." "Good." Admiral Kim took a deep breath. "Connect me to Earth Defense Command. Use the secure channel, and then pull up the Lazarus protocols." Yuna's eyes went wide. She had heard about the Lazarus protocols, but only in whispers. They were the most secret files in the entire military. Only the highest-ranking officers even knew they existed. "Sir, I do not have clearance for those files," she said. "You do now." Admiral Kim looked at her with eyes that seemed suddenly very old and very tired. "The protocols were created for exactly this situation. First contact. Everyone hoped we would never need them. But we planned for the worst anyway." The secure channel connected to Earth. Faces appeared on the screen. Generals, admirals, and government leaders from every major nation. They all looked confused and worried. News traveled fast in the military. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Kim said, "at exactly 23:47 hours, we received a transmission from an alien vessel outside our solar system. They are demanding our surrender and integration into something called the Valorum Protectorate." Silence filled the channel. Then everyone started talking at once. Questions flew back and forth. Some people looked scared. Others looked angry. A few looked like they might be sick. Admiral Kim raised his hand, and slowly, everyone went quiet. "I know this is shocking," he continued, "but we prepared for this. The Lazarus protocols are now active. All fleet commanders, report to your ships. All defense stations, go to full alert. We have 6 hours to respond to their message." "What will we tell them?" someone asked. Admiral Kim looked at Yuna's screen one more time. The alien words glowed in the dim light of the communication center. They expected fear. They expected surrender. They expected humans to be just another primitive species, easy to control. They were wrong. "We will tell them no," Admiral Kim said. "And then we will show them why that was a mistake to ask." The connection ended. Admiral Kim turned to Yuna, who was still sitting at her console, her hands still shaking. "You did well, Officer Park," he said. "Now get ready. Things are about to get very interesting." Yuna nodded, but she could not speak. She just kept staring at the message from the stars. The universe had finally said hello, and it had not been friendly about it. In the darkness of space, the Valoran cruiser waited for a response. Commander Thyrix was certain it would be the same as always. Fear, confusion, and eventual surrender. That was how it always went with primitive species. He had no idea how wrong he was about to be. Commander Thyrix checked the time on his console. The humans had received his message 2 hours ago. Usually, by now, the primitive species would have sent back dozens of confused transmissions. They would be asking questions. They would be begging for more time. They would be showing all the signs of fear that Thyrix had seen so many times before. But the humans were silent. "Strange," Thyrix muttered to himself. Morith looked up from his station. "Perhaps their communication technology is too basic to respond quickly, Commander. They are a very young species." "Perhaps," Thyrix agreed, but something in his stomach felt wrong. In all his years of first contact missions, silence was rare. Species either panicked immediately or tried to negotiate immediately. They did not just sit quietly and wait. "Run another scan of the system," Thyrix ordered. "Check for any military response." Morith worked his controls. The scanning beam swept across the solar system, looking at the planets, the moons, and the empty space between them. The results came back quickly. Nothing unusual, Commander. Their small orbital stations are still in the same positions. A few of their primitive ships are moving around their planet, but nothing that looks like a military response. They seem to be doing nothing. Thyrix tapped his clawed fingers against his chair. Doing nothing. That was strange. That was very strange. Then his communication officer spoke up. Commander, we are receiving a response from the planet. Finally, Thyrix said. Put it through. The main screen flickered, and then a human face appeared. It was an older male with gray hair and dark eyes. He wore a uniform of some kind, blue and gray with small metal decorations on his chest. His expression was calm. Too calm. Valoran vessel, the human said in perfect galactic standard. This is Admiral Kim Do-won of United Earth Authority. We acknowledge your transmission. Thyrix blinked. The human was speaking Galactic Standard. That was impossible. Galactic Standard was the common language of spacefaring civilizations. It took most species centuries to learn it after first contact. These humans had learned it in 2 hours? No, that was not right. They must have known it already. But how? We have reviewed your terms, Admiral Kim continued, his voice flat and steady. They are rejected. Furthermore, we require you to withdraw beyond the boundary of our solar system within 6 standard hours. Failure to comply will be interpreted as an act of war. The bridge went completely silent. Thyrix stared at the screen, his mouth hanging open slightly. In 6,000 years of Valoran expansion, no primitive species had ever rejected their terms. Not once. Not ever. And then the human did something that made Thyrix's blood run cold. He smiled. The transmission ended. The screen went dark. For a long moment, nobody on the bridge moved or spoke. Then Thyrix started to laugh. It was a nervous laugh, the kind that comes when something is so unexpected that the brain does not know how else to respond. They rejected us, he said between laughs. The primitives rejected us. A few other officers joined in the laughter. The tension on the bridge broke as everyone decided this was funny. A tiny species with no real technology, telling the mighty Valoran Protectorate to leave. It was like a small insect telling a giant to go away. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Scan their defenses, Thyrix said, still chuckling. Let us see what these brave little creatures have. We will show them what happens when primitives try to resist the Protectorate. Morith ran the scan. His fingers moved across the controls with practiced ease. The scanning beam swept across the solar system again, but this time they were looking for weapons, ships, and defense platforms. The kind of things that would matter in a fight. The results came back. The laughter stopped. Morith's purple scales went pale, almost white. His eyes went wide. His hands began to shake so badly that he could barely read the display in front of him. That cannot be right, he whispered. What is it? Thyrix demanded. The fear in Morith's voice was real, and that made Thyrix afraid too. There is an error in the scan, Commander. There must be. I am running it again. The scan ran a second time. The results were the same. Morith ran it a third time. Same results. Fourth time. Same results. Report. Thyrix shouted. What do you see? Morith turned to face his commander. His eyes were filled with something Thyrix had never seen in a Valoran before. Pure, absolute terror. The scan shows 17,000 combat-ready vessels in this system, Commander. 17,000. They are hidden behind their planets, inside asteroid fields, and in the darkness between worlds. Their orbital stations are not civilian structures. They are defense platforms. hundreds of them. And their homeworld? Morris swallowed hard. Their homeworld is protected by a planetary shield. Thyrix felt the blood drain from his face. 17,000 ships? That was more than most Valoran battle fleets combined. And a planetary shield? The technology required for that was beyond even the Protectorate's current abilities. That is impossible, Thyrix said, but his voice was weak. They are primitives. They achieved space travel only a century and a half ago. There is more, Commander. Morith's voice was barely a whisper now. Their weapon signatures. I recognize them. They match. They match Dominion-class weapons. The word hit the bridge like a physical blow. Dominion, the ancient empire that had ruled the entire galaxy 40,000 years ago. The civilization that had controlled everything, built everything, knew everything, and then vanished in a great civil war that destroyed them completely. Or so everyone believed. The Dominion is gone, Thyrix said. They destroyed themselves. Nothing remains. Their weapons say otherwise, Commander. Morith pointed at his screen with a shaking finger. Those energy signatures are unmistakable. Whoever these humans are, they have access to Dominion technology. Real, working Dominion technology. Thyrix sat back in his chair. His mind was racing, trying to understand what this meant. The Dominion had been the most powerful civilization in galactic history. Their weapons could destroy planets. Their shields could stop anything. Their knowledge was so advanced that even after 40,000 years, modern civilizations could not match it. And somehow, this tiny species on this tiny planet had found their technology. How? Thyrix asked. How is this possible? I do not know, Commander. But we need to leave. Now. We cannot fight Dominion-level weapons. Nothing can fight Dominion-level weapons. Another officer spoke up. Commander, sensors show movement. Several of the human ships are changing position. They are moving toward us. Thyrix looked at the tactical display. Small dots were moving through the darkness of space. They were far away, but they were getting closer. And according to the scan, each one of those tiny dots carried weapons that could turn the Ascendant Dawn into dust. How many ships are approaching? Thyrix asked. 50, Commander. No, wait, 100. They are coming from multiple directions. 100 ships, each one armed with technology from the greatest empire that ever existed, against one Valoran cruiser. Thyrix thought about the human admiral's smile. Now he understood it. The human had not been bluffing. He had not been pretending to be brave. He had been completely, absolutely confident. Because he knew something Thyrix was only now beginning to understand. The humans were not primitives. They were something much, much worse. Open a communication channel to the human command, Thyrix ordered. His voice had lost all its earlier arrogance. Now he sounded like what he was, scared. What should I say, Commander? The communication officer asked. Thyrix stared at the screen showing all those ships moving toward his position. 17,000 vessels. Dominion weapons. A planetary shield. His dreams of easy conquest were dead. Now he just wanted to survive. Tell them, Thyrix said slowly, that we wish to talk. Deep beneath the city of Seoul, in a bunker built into solid rock, Admiral Kim Do-won watched the Valoran cruiser on a dozen holographic screens. The alien ship had stopped moving. It was just sitting there in space, waiting. Around it, 100 human warships held their positions like wolves surrounding a wounded deer. The bunker was called the War Room, and it was the most secret place on Earth. Only a few hundred people knew it existed. The walls were lined with computers and display screens showing everything happening in space. Officers sat at stations, monitoring the situation and waiting for orders. Beside Admiral Kim stood a woman named Lee Sujin. She was 54 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and glasses that she constantly pushed up her nose. She was not a soldier. She was a scientist. Specifically, she was the director of xenarchaeology, which meant she studied alien things. And for the past 30 years, she had been studying the most important alien things ever found. "They have stopped moving," Dr. Lee said, looking at the screens. "They are scared." "Good," Admiral Kim replied. "They should be." The door to the war room opened, and Captain Cho Min-ho walked in. He was young for his rank, only 35, but he was one of the best tactical officers in the fleet. He had been running the defense operation from orbit. "Admiral, the alien vessel has requested communication," Captain Cho reported. "They want to talk. Of course they do." Admiral Kim allowed himself a small smile. "Now that they have seen what we have, they want to negotiate instead of conquer. Let them wait a little longer. Fear is useful." Dr. Lee looked at the data on her tablet. She had been studying the Valorans since the first message arrived, pulling information from the archives about their species. According to the Dominion records, the Valorans have been expanding their empire for about 6,000 years, she said. They absorb other species into their protectorate, sometimes peacefully, sometimes not. They have never encountered significant resistance because they always target species that are much less developed than they are. "Bullies," Captain Cho said with disgust in his voice. "They only pick on the weak." "Exactly," Dr. Lee agreed. "They have no idea how to handle a situation like this. Their entire strategy is based on being the bigger, stronger force. When they meet someone stronger than them, they do not know what to do." Admiral Kim nodded slowly. He understood bullies. He had dealt with them his whole life in different forms. The key to handling a bully was simple. You had to show them that you were not afraid, and that attacking you would cost them more than they could afford to pay. "How much do they know about the Dominion?" Admiral Kim asked. "Everyone in the galaxy knows about the Dominion," Dr. Lee explained. "They were the greatest civilization in history. They ruled everything for tens of thousands of years. Their technology was so advanced that even now, 40,000 years after their fall, nobody has matched it. Most species consider them almost like gods from ancient myths. And they all think the Dominion is gone completely? Yes. The official history says the Dominion destroyed themselves in a massive civil war. All their knowledge, all their technology, all their people, gone, vanished. The galaxy spent thousands of years in darkness after they fell, slowly rebuilding civilization from scratch." Admiral Kim looked at the screens showing his fleet. 17,000 ships, each one built using technology recovered from the Dominion vaults. For 100 years, humanity had been preparing for this moment, learning the ancient secrets, building the ships and weapons, training the crews, waiting. "But the Dominion is not gone," Admiral Kim said quietly. "Not completely, no." Dr. Lee shook her head. "They left something behind. The vaults. The vaults. The greatest discovery in human history. Found in 2089, buried under miles of ice in Antarctica. A massive underground complex containing the complete technological archive of the Dominion Empire. Ships, weapons, computers, medical technology. Everything the Dominion knew, preserved perfectly for 40,000 years, waiting to be found. Why did they leave it?" Captain Cho asked. It was a question that had haunted humanity for decades. "We do not know for certain," Dr. Lee admitted. "But based on the records we have translated, we believe the Dominion knew their war would destroy them. So they chose a young, primitive species on a remote planet and left their legacy with them. A gift for the future. A second chance for their knowledge to survive. They chose us," Admiral Kim said. "They chose Earth. Our ancestors were still living in caves when the Dominion fell. We had no idea what was buried beneath our planet. It took us almost 100,000 years to develop enough to even find the vaults, let alone understand them. A communication officer spoke up. "Admiral, the Valaran ship is transmitting again. They are asking why we have not responded." "Tell them we are considering their request," Admiral Kim said. "Tell them to continue waiting." The officer relayed the message. On the screen, the Valaran ship remained motionless, surrounded by human warships that could destroy it in seconds. "What is our goal here?" Captain Cho asked. "Do we want to fight them? Make peace? Send them away?" Admiral Kim thought carefully before answering. "Our goal is survival. Not just for today, but for the long term. The Valarans are just one empire among many in this galaxy. If we simply destroy this ship, we might start a war we cannot win. Their empire has thousands of ships spread across hundreds of systems. We are strong, but we are still one planet. So we negotiate?" Captain Cho sounded disappointed. "We show them what we are," Admiral Kim corrected. "We make them understand that Earth is not a target. We make them afraid to attack us. And then we send them home to tell everyone else what they saw. Fear spreads faster than weapons." Dr. Lee nodded in agreement. The Dominion used the same strategy. They rarely had to fight because everyone knew what would happen if they tried. Their reputation was their greatest weapon. "We will build the same reputation," Admiral Kim said. "Starting today. Starting with this ship." He walked to the main communication console and pressed a button. A connection opened to the Valaran cruiser. Commander Thyrix appeared on screen. He looked different now. The arrogance was gone from his face. His scales seemed duller, and his eyes kept moving nervously. "Admiral Kim," Thyrix said. "Thank you for responding. We wish to discuss the situation." "There is nothing to discuss, Commander," Admiral Kim replied calmly. "You came here expecting to conquer a primitive species. You found something else instead. Now you have a choice. Leave peacefully and report what you have seen to your superiors. Or stay and discover exactly what our weapons can do." Thyrix swallowed hard. "We have questions. How do you possess Dominion technology? Where did you find it? How long have you had it?" "Those are not your questions to ask," Admiral Kim said. "You are not in a position to demand information from us. But I will tell you one thing, Commander, because I want you to understand clearly." He paused, letting the silence build. "The Dominion left their legacy on our world. We found it. We learned it. And we have spent a century preparing for this day. You are the first to discover what we truly are. You will not be the last. Go home, Commander. Tell your leaders what you have seen. Tell them that Earth is not for conquest. Tell them that the children of the Dominion send their greetings." The connection ended. In the war room, everyone was silent. Captain Cho was staring at Admiral Kim with something like admiration. "Children of the Dominion," Captain Cho repeated. "That was good." "It is the truth," Dr. Lee said softly. "In a way, the Dominion adopted us. They gave us everything they had. We are their heirs." Admiral Kim watched the screens as the Valaran cruiser began to move. Slowly at first, then faster, it turned away from Earth and headed for the edge of the solar system. The human ships followed at a distance, escorting it out. "Will they really leave?" Captain Cho asked. "Yes," Admiral Kim said. "They have no choice. And when they report what they found here, everything will change. The galaxy will learn that Earth is not what they expected. Some will want to be our friends. Others will want to destroy us before we become too powerful. We need to be ready for both." He looked at the blue planet on the screen. His home. The home of 8 billion people who had no idea how close they had come to losing everything. "We have been hiding for 100 years, Admiral Kim said. Today, that ends. Today, humanity steps onto the galactic stage, and we will never be pushed off it again. The news traveled faster than light itself. Through communication relays that stretched across the galaxy, through whispered conversations in alien trading posts, through emergency meetings of government officials on 100 different worlds. Within one standard galactic day, everyone knew. The humans had Dominion technology. On the Valoran homeworld, a planet called Valor Prime, the High Council met in emergency session. The Great Hall was filled with the most powerful Valorans in the Empire. Military commanders, political leaders, scientists, and advisors. All of them were trying to understand how everything they believed had been proven wrong. Commander Thyrix stood before them, his scales still pale from the fear that had not left him since the encounter. He told them everything. The 17,000 ships. The planetary shield. The weapon signatures that matched Dominion records. And the human admiral's final words, delivered with absolute confidence. Children of the Dominion, Thyrix repeated. That is what he called them. The High Council erupted into chaos. Some refused to believe it. Others demanded immediate war. A few suggested running away to the far side of the galaxy. The arguing went on for hours. Finally, the oldest member of the council raised his hand. His name was Korath, and he was over 300 years old. He had lived through wars and disasters that most Valorans only read about in history books. When he spoke, everyone listened. We have been fools, Korath said, his voice heavy with age and sadness. For 6,000 years, we believed we were the greatest power in our region of space. We absorbed species after species, growing fat and lazy on easy conquests. We never imagined that someone might be waiting. Someone stronger than us. We can fight them, a young military commander shouted. Our full fleet numbers in the tens of thousands. We can overwhelm them. With what? Korath asked. Our weapons cannot penetrate Dominion shields. Our shields cannot stop Dominion weapons. You saw the recordings Commander Thyrix brought back. One human cruiser carries more firepower than our entire Third Fleet. And they have 17,000 of them. The room went quiet. What do you suggest? Another council member asked. I suggest we do something we have never done before, Korath said. I suggest we make peace. 2 weeks later, a single Valoran diplomatic shuttle entered the Sol system. It was a small ship, designed for transport rather than combat. Its pilot was a young officer named Varix, and his hands shook the entire way. Human warships surrounded the shuttle the moment it crossed the outer boundary. Varix counted them with growing terror. 10, 20, 50, each one larger and more powerful than anything the Protectorate had. Each one watching him like a predator watching prey. A message came through his communication system. A human voice, calm and professional. Valoran shuttle, you will follow our escort to the designated landing zone. Any deviation from the assigned course will be considered hostile action. Do you understand? I understand, Varix replied, his voice cracking slightly. I will follow your instructions exactly. The escort led him past defense platforms that bristled with weapons, past space stations that could hold thousands of people, past ships so large they blocked out the stars behind them. Varix had served in the Valoran Navy for 15 years, and he had never felt so small. The shuttle finally approached Earth itself. The planet hung in space like a blue and green jewel, wrapped in a shimmering energy field. The planetary shield. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. Nothing should be able to break through that shield. Nothing at all. Varix landed at a designated port and was escorted through a series of security checkpoints by armed human soldiers. They were smaller than Valorans, with soft skin instead of scales, but they moved with the confidence of warriors who knew they could not be defeated. The diplomatic meeting took place in a building above something called the Antarctic Vaults. Varix did not know what that meant, but he noticed that the human officials seemed to treat the location with special respect. Commander Thyrix was there as well, representing the Valoran military. He looked even worse than before, his scales losing their color, his eyes constantly watching the humans around him with barely hidden fear. On the human side, Admiral Kim sat at the head of the table. Beside him was Dr. Lee, the scientist, and a woman named Beek Jeon, who served as the protocol officer. Varix noticed that the room had been set up in a particular way. The lighting was dimmer on the Valoran side. The chairs were slightly higher. Small details that showed the humans had studied Valoran preferences. That was somehow more frightening than the weapons. The humans did not just have superior technology. They had knowledge. Ancient knowledge from the Dominion about hundreds of species, including the Valorans. They knew things about Valorans that Valorans did not know about themselves. "Thank you for coming," Admiral Kim said, his voice polite but not warm. "We appreciate the Protectorate's willingness to talk." "We have many questions," Thyrix said. "The High Council wishes to understand how this is possible. The Dominion fell 40,000 years ago. Everything was lost. How did your species, so young and primitive, come to possess their technology?" Admiral Kim nodded to Dr. Lee, who activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air. Ancient structures. Underground chambers. Machines that hummed with impossible power. 91 years ago, a team of our scientists discovered a massive complex buried beneath the ice of Antarctica, Dr. Lee explained. "We call it the Vaults. It contains the complete technological archive of the Dominion Empire. Ships, weapons, medical technology, scientific knowledge covering every field imaginable. Everything the Dominion created over their 40,000 years of existence, preserved perfectly and waiting to be found." Thyrix stared at the images. His mouth opened and closed several times, but no words came out. "Why?" Varix finally asked. "Why would the Dominion leave such a treasure on your world?" "We believe they knew their civil war would destroy them," Dr. Lee continued. "So they chose to preserve their knowledge by hiding it on a remote planet with a young species. Our ancestors were not advanced enough to find the vaults. But the Dominion knew that someday we would develop and discover what they left for us. They chose you to be their heirs," Thyrix whispered. "Yes," Admiral Kim's voice was firm. "They gave us everything they had, and we have spent almost a century learning it, building from it, and preparing for the day when we would meet others from the galaxy. That day has arrived." Thyrix looked at the human admiral with new eyes. He finally understood what he was dealing with. These humans were not just a primitive species that had gotten lucky. They had been chosen, selected by the greatest civilization in galactic history to carry on their legacy. "What do you want from us?" Thyrix asked. "We want peace," Admiral Kim replied. "We have no desire to conquer your empire. We have no desire to conquer anyone. We simply want to live our lives and develop our civilization without being threatened or attacked. Is that something the Protectorate can accept?" Thyrix thought about the High Council. He thought about the arguing and the fear. He thought about the thousands of years the Valorans had spent believing they were the most powerful force in the galaxy. All of that was over now. "I believe it can," Thyrix said slowly. "But you must understand, Admiral. This news will change everything. When the galaxy learns that the Dominion's legacy survives, everyone will react. Some will want to be your friends. Others will see you as a threat to be destroyed. And some will want to take what you have for themselves." Admiral Kim smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Let them try," he said. "We have been preparing for that too." The meeting continued for several more hours. Details were discussed. Agreements were drafted. By the end, A framework for peace between Earth and the Valaran Protectorate had been established. But as Varix flew his shuttle back toward the edge of the solar system, escorted once again by human warships, he could not stop thinking about what he had witnessed. A new power had risen in the galaxy, not through conquest or war, but through an inheritance from the ancient past. The children of the Dominion had finally announced themselves to the universe, and nothing would ever be the same again. 6 months had passed since first contact. 6 months since a Valaran cruiser had tried to conquer Earth and discovered that humans were not what they seemed. 6 months since the galaxy learned that the Dominion's legacy had not been lost after all. Everything had changed. Admiral Kim Do-won stood on the observation deck of the new Earth Embassy Station, watching ships come and go. The station had been built in orbit above the Antarctic, directly over the vaults. It was a massive structure, designed to welcome visitors from across the galaxy, while also reminding them of what lay beneath. A greeting and a warning at the same time. In the past 6 months, delegations had arrived from 16 different civilizations. Some came in friendship, seeking trade agreements and cultural exchange. Others came out of curiosity, wanting to see for themselves if the stories were true. A few came with hidden purposes, trying to learn the secrets of humanity's power. All of them left impressed and afraid. "You look tired, Admiral," a voice said behind him. Kim turned to see Vice Admiral No Hyan walking toward him. She was 42 years old, with short hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been his second in command for the past decade, and now she was ready to take over his position. "I am tired," Kim admitted. 63 years old, Hyan. "I have been serving the fleet since I was 20. That is 43 years of watching and waiting for a threat that we hoped would never come. But it did come," Hyan said. "And we were ready." "Yes." Kim looked out at the stars. "We were ready. But now comes the hard part. Building relationships with alien civilizations is much more complicated than just pointing weapons at them. I am a soldier, not a diplomat. That is why you have people like Officer Beek Jian," Hyan said with a slight smile. "She's been doing excellent work with the visiting delegations, even the difficult ones." Kim nodded. Jian had proven herself invaluable in the past months. She had a talent for understanding alien psychology and making them feel respected, while also making sure they understood humanity's strength. It was a delicate balance, and she walked it perfectly. "I received a message from the Valaran High Council yesterday," Kim said. "They want to establish a formal embassy on Earth, full diplomatic relations, trade agreements, maybe even military cooperation in the future." Hyan raised an eyebrow. "That is quite a change from trying to conquer us." "Fear does strange things," Kim replied. "They are afraid of us, yes. But they are more afraid of what might happen if they are not on our side when trouble comes. And trouble will come. The galaxy is not a peaceful place." The door to the observation deck opened again, and Dr. Lee Soo-jin walked in. She was carrying a tablet, as always, and her glasses were slightly crooked on her nose. "Admiral, Vice Admiral," she said in greeting. "I have news from the archive translation team." "Good news or bad news?" Kim asked. "Interesting news." Dr. Lee pulled up a display on her tablet. "We finished translating another section of the Dominion records. It talks about why they fell. The Civil War was not just about politics or power. It was about a threat from outside the galaxy, something they called the Voidwalkers." A chill ran down Kim's spine. "What are Voidwalkers?" "We do not know yet. The records are incomplete. But based on what we have translated, it seems the Dominion split into factions over how to deal with this threat. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to hide. Others wanted to try to make peace. The disagreement destroyed them. And these Voidwalkers? What happened to them? That is the concerning part. Dr. Lee pushed her glasses up her nose. The records do not say. Either the Dominion destroyed them before they fell, or they are still out there, Hyan finished. Yes. Silence filled the observation deck. Outside the windows, ships continued to arrive and depart. Alien delegations conducting their business. Human officers going about their duties. Everyone focused on the present, not knowing what might be waiting in the future. Does anyone else know about this? Kim asked. Only my senior researchers, Dr. Lee replied. I thought you should decide how to handle this information. Kim thought for a long moment. The galaxy was already dealing with the shock of humanity's emergence. Adding a mysterious ancient threat to the mix might cause panic, or it might unite the various civilizations against a common enemy. It was impossible to predict. Keep translating, Kim finally said. Find out everything you can about these void walkers. But keep it quiet for now. We need more information before we start sharing this with others. Understood, Admiral. Dr. Lee left the observation deck. Kim and Hyan stood in silence for a while, watching the stars. You know, Hyan said eventually, when I was a little girl, I used to look up at the night sky and wonder if anyone was out there. I wondered if we would ever meet them and what they would be like. And now? Now I know there are many civilizations out there. Some are friendly, some are dangerous. And apparently, there might be something even worse lurking in the darkness between galaxies. She shook her head. The universe is much more complicated than I imagined, but also more wonderful, Kim said. Think about what we have accomplished, Hyan. 100 years ago, we found a gift from an ancient civilization. We studied it. We learned from it. We built ourselves into something that can stand beside any power in the galaxy. Our ancestors could not have dreamed of this. True. Hyan smiled slightly. And now you are going to retire and leave me to handle whatever comes next. You are ready, Kim said with confidence. I have watched you grow from a young officer into one of the finest leaders I have ever known. The fleet is in good hands. What will you do? Kim looked out at Earth, visible in the distance as a blue and white sphere hanging in the darkness. I think I will go home, he said. I have a small house in the countryside, near Bizen. I have not seen it in years. I want to sit on my porch, drink tea, and watch the sunrise over the mountains. Simple things. Human things? You have earned it, Hyan said. The door opened one more time, and Commander Park Yuna entered. She had been promoted several times since that night when she first received the alien transmission. Now she was in charge of all diplomatic communications for the Earth Authority. Admiral, Vice Admiral, she said. The Valoran ambassador has arrived. He is requesting a meeting to finalize the embassy agreement. I will handle it, Hyan said, looking at Kim. Unless you want one more meeting before you retire. Kim shook his head. No, it is your time now. I am just an old man watching ships from a window. Hyan nodded and left with Yuna. Kim stayed on the observation deck alone. Through the window, he could see a Valoran diplomatic ship docking at the station. 6 months ago, Valorans had come to conquer humanity. Now they came to make peace. 6 months ago, humans were unknown to the galaxy. Now they were one of its most important powers. The universe was indeed complicated, and wonderful, and dangerous. But humanity had survived and grown and built itself into something remarkable. Whatever came next, whether it was friendly aliens or ancient threats or challenges no one could predict, humans would face it together. Kim smiled to himself and headed for the door. He had a retirement to begin and a quiet house waiting for him. But he knew, deep in his heart, that the story of humanity among the stars was only just beginning. Far away, in the cold darkness between galaxies, something stirred. Something ancient. Something that had been sleeping for a very long time. But that is a story for another day.